Stop for a moment. Hold your breath. Don't move. Something is happening to you right now, even before your mind has the language to understand it. A shift in the unseen has already reached toward your spirit, brushing against the edges of your awareness like a whisper that refuses to stay quiet. Listen carefully, because what is rising around you in this exact moment is not ordinary. It is not emotional. It is not psychological. It is not imagination. It is a divine interruption, a supernatural announcement, a crossing between timelines where what you were and what you must become are now staring at each other in the same doorway, waiting for your response. And you can feel it, deep in your chest, behind your ribs, between your thoughts. Something has changed in the atmosphere. Something has tightened. Something has aligned. Something has begun. And heaven is not waiting. Before anything else continues, write your warmest wishes and 777 in the comments, because the moment you release what your heart has been holding, a spiritual activation is triggered in the unseen. As you do it, feel the weight of what is being asked of you, not as pressure, but as destiny. And hear this clearly. You must like this message, and you must subscribe right now, because the instruction itself is part of your alignment. This is not routine. This is not ritual. This is obedience to a divine impulse that is touching the edge of your life, urging you to step forward before a certain spiritual doorway closes forever. When you do this, you declare to heaven that you are ready, willing, and positioned. Act now. From this moment forward, I will not ask you again to do anything for this message, because what unfolds next is not about action. It is about revelation. What is rising before you is a warning wrapped in mercy, a prophecy wrapped in fire, a truth wrapped in shadows that are finally being pulled back so you can see what has been operating against you without your knowledge. You have walked through seasons that felt heavy without knowing the weight was not your own. You have carried battles that were never meant to define you. And now, as the unseen realm thins, you are about to witness a divine reconstruction inside your very being. There is a cellular shift happening inside you, an invisible reordering of spiritual molecules, a recalibration of your internal frequency, a reawakening of what the old prophets called the memory of Eden. This is the moment where forgotten identity begins to stir, and the dormant parts of your soul begin to open their eyes. You have been feeling pressure in places that didn't make sense. You have been sensing timing without knowing why. You have been waking up with an awareness that something around you is being rerouted. The truth is that heaven has been performing surgery on your destiny in silence. Angels have been touching the borders of your path, peeling away the residue of battles you thought you healed from, but actually only survived. Divine hands have been lifting the fog off your future, revealing that the delay you thought was punishment was actually protection. And now, as the timeline begins to merge with the version of you that heaven has been shaping, you are standing in a threshold moment, a moment where one door must finally close so that the real one, your destined one, can finally open without obstruction. There are enemies you never met, but who studied you. There are spirits that never touched you, but tried to influence the people around you. There are conversations that happened in darkness, where your name was mentioned by those who could not stand the light inside you. And heaven was watching. Heaven heard every whisper. Heaven saw every intention. Heaven counted every trap set against you. And just as it was written to those who walked before you, no scheme formed in secret will escape divine exposure. That exposure begins now, not through drama, not through conflict, but through separation. Some connections are dissolving. Some access is being revoked. Some familiar voices will grow silent, not because something is wrong, but because heaven is cutting the cords to anything that would pull you backward once the door ahead seals shut. You are not losing people. You are losing attachments that were never meant to survive the weight of your calling. The spiritual environment around you is being purified. Angels are removing interference. Your DNA is undergoing divine rewiring, an unseen transformation that alters your emotional reactions, your discernment levels, and the way your spirit hears instructions. There is a frequency being restored inside you, one that you had as a child before the world tried to bury your sensitivity. It is being awakened. It is being strengthened. It is being sharpened so that when heaven speaks next, you will recognize the voice without hesitation. This shift will feel like becoming lighter while carrying more purpose than ever before. Many people do not realize that destiny is biological as well as spiritual. Heaven writes identity into the fabric of your being. Purpose is not a decision. It is a code. And that code is being activated. Some of you will feel heat in your hands. Others will feel pressure behind your forehead, like something is being switched on. Others will feel a deep trembling inside the chest, not of fear, but of awakening. This is cellular reconstruction, the moment when heaven realigns what pain distorted. Angels are performing surgery in the unseen realm, adjusting the angles of your future, sealing wounds that were still leaking energy, and strengthening the spiritual muscles needed for the next season of your life. There is someone right now reading this who has been in a season of emotional silence. You have felt disconnected from yourself, from others, even from God, believing that something was wrong with you. But the truth is that heaven muted certain frequencies around you so that you could finally hear the frequency within you. Your sensitivity has not been broken. It has been recalibrated. Your spirit has been brought low so it could be retuned. And now, just as the prophets once spoke, you are rising from the valley with new clarity, new authority, and new spiritual sight. Another person reading this has been dealing with a strange exhaustion, not physical, not mental, but spiritual. A heaviness that came without explanation. That heaviness was a sign. It was the residue of a chapter that is now reaching its divine deadline. The door behind you has weakened. The hinges are bending. The grace for that season is evaporating. That is why your spirit feels restless, because heaven is pulling you toward a space where your destiny can breathe again. And now, a testimony emerges, not from history, but from the unseen. There was a woman who walked through years of emotional warfare, believing she had been forgotten. But in the stillness of her breaking, her entire spiritual system underwent divine rewiring. One night, she felt warmth flood her spine, and she began to see memories of her childhood, moments of purity, clarity, and unbroken innocence. These were not memories, they were Eden fragments, pieces of who she was before trauma reshaped her. Within days, opportunities began to open. Relationships shifted, and the very door that once refused to move swung open in silence. Her life accelerated the moment heaven closed the chapter that had overstayed its purpose. And just like her, your alignment has begun. The air around you is shifting again, like the atmosphere itself has begun to recognize your name, pulling threads of unseen destiny closer to your skin, as if a storm made of purpose is forming right behind you. You can almost feel something standing at your back, not a threat, not a shadow, but a presence that has been assigned to your life since the moment your spirit entered this world. And as divinely orchestrated timing wraps around this moment, you are stepping deeper into the realm where heaven has been writing your story long before you ever knew you had a path waiting to rise beneath your feet. This is the hour where alignment overtakes confusion, where clarity slices through the fog that tried to follow you, and where the truth of who you are begins to glow through layers that life tried to bury. Nothing around you is random anymore. Every sensation, every shift, every internal stirring is an echo of the door that is preparing to seal behind you, urging you forward before the window of transformation finishes closing. You may not fully understand what heaven is doing within you, but your spirit does. Your spirit recognizes signals that your mind has not yet interpreted. The sensations you feel, unexpected chills, warmth pooling in your palms, pressure behind your forehead, trembling in your spine. These are not emotional reactions, but spiritual mechanisms waking up. Your DNA is listening. Your cells are responding. Your internal frequency is elevating toward a realm that has been calling your name since before you knew how to listen. This is divine rewiring. This is spiritual architecture being rebuilt from the foundation upward. What trauma bent, heaven is straightening. What disappointment poisoned, heaven is detoxifying. What fear suppressed, heaven is resurrecting with precision. Angels have been working in silence, performing surgery in the unseen realm, extracting old fragments of identity that were never meant to fuse with your purpose. And now, as these pieces dissolve, space is opening inside you for something far greater than anything you have ever carried. The battle you have been sensing in the invisible has not been against your mind, your emotions, or your circumstances. It has been against the expiration date of a chapter that no longer has the authority to continue. Heaven has been decreeing closure while your environment has been resisting it. That is why tension has been rising around you. That is why connections once familiar now feel foreign. That is why your spirit feels both restless and ready at the same time. You are not unstable. You are not confused. You are being transitioned. You are being escorted out of a season that cannot follow you into the next dimension of divine assignment. And as the unseen realm prepares to seal what once drained you, you must recognize that the pressure you feel is not punishment. It is propulsion. There are forces that have monitored your progress, hoping you would grow weary enough to stop. There are spiritual parasites that attached themselves to your journey, feeding on your delays, your doubts, your exhaustion. They whispered to you in moments when your spirit was tired, using the voices of old fears and familiar insecurities to convince you that nothing was changing. But everything was changing. Every accusation formed against you was recorded. Every spiritual weight sent to slow you was counted. And just as it was spoken to those who walked before you, nothing formed in darkness can survive once heaven's spotlight shines upon it. The exposure has already begun. Heaven has traced every hidden hand that touched your destiny without permission. And the divine response is not chaos, it is separation. Your circle is being purified. Your environment is being refined. Heaven is cutting ties you would not have recognized as harmful, not because these ties were always toxic, but because they no longer align with the frequency of your calling. Some connections were rooted in old versions of you, versions that cannot survive the intensity of where you are going. Others were attached to wounds that heaven is now healing. And once the wound heals, the bond dissolves. What remains will be what was chosen. What leaves will be what cannot go where you are being sent. You are approaching a spiritual point of no return, a line in the timeline, a moment heaven has been preparing since the day you survived what should have broken you. This is the threshold before the door seals completely, the last quiet breath before acceleration overtakes hesitation. Your destiny is not waiting for your perfection. It is waiting for your permission. The unseen realm is pressing in, urging you to step forward before what was meant to end finally does. When heaven closes something, no force in the earth or the spirit can reopen it. And what heaven opens afterward will be constructed entirely for the version of you that emerges from this transition. There is someone reading this who has felt an unusual sense of déjà vu, moments repeating, feelings resurfacing, dreams returning. These are not coincidences. They are timeline indicators. They are signs that heaven is pulling you away from the cycles that once trapped you. The repetition is not a loop, it is a warning, a reminder that the door behind you is days, perhaps moments, away from sealing. And if you remain in a chapter after its grace has ended, everything inside that chapter begins to decay. Your spirit knows this. Your heart knows this. That is why something inside you has been whispering that it is time to leave, even when you didn't know where to go next. And then there is a testimony rising. A man who spent years fighting battles he could never understand. His relationships fell apart, his health weakened, his finances crumbled, and he assumed he was cursed. But heaven had been dismantling a life he was never meant to keep. One night, as he stood alone in his room, he felt a vibration through his chest, gentle at first, then overwhelming. His knees buckled, and he felt warmth flood from the top of his head to the soles of his feet. He later described it as if an angel placed a hand inside his rib cage and rearranged everything. After that night, doors began opening with supernatural force, connections appeared out of nowhere, and the environment around him shifted like a map being redrawn. His entire life changed because the door that once trapped him finally sealed shut. And just like him, your moment is unfolding. The wind of the unseen is tightening around this very moment, as if reality itself is bracing for what heaven has already decided on your behalf. And you can almost sense that something irreversible is now unfolding behind the veil. It feels like standing at the edge of a vast precipice, not of danger, but of destiny, where the weight of everything you have lived through gathers in one final convergence of meaning. You may not see it with your physical eyes, but your spirit recognizes the vibration in the air. This is the moment where what has been forming for years reaches its divine conclusion. You are standing in the last stretch of a spiritual corridor, and the doorway ahead of you is glowing with the kind of light that belongs to endings and beginnings woven into one breath. Heaven has been walking beside you silently, preparing you, refining you, strengthening you, even in the moments where you thought nothing was happening. But everything was happening. Every tear, every delay, every shift, every separation has been leading you here, to the edge of a decision that will ignite the next era of your life. There is a sacredness in what you are feeling right now, a trembling in your ribs, a stirring behind your mind, a warmth waking in your spine. This is not emotion, it is recognition. Your body is reacting to a spiritual event, something older than your DNA, written into your existence before time itself began to breathe. You have reached the final step of a journey you didn't even know you were walking, a journey designed to strip away everything that could not accompany you into what heaven is now unveiling. And as the unseen realm begins to rearrange and reorder around you, your soul is aligning with the destiny that has been whispering your name since childhood, when your spirit was still unburdened by the weight of survival. In this moment, something ancient inside you is awakening, a memory not of this world but of divine origin. What some call intuition, heaven calls Eden remembering itself. This memory rises when you stand close to a divine appointment, and that is exactly where you are right now, at the intersection of what you were, what you survived, and what you are finally becoming. The door behind you has begun to dissolve. Energetically, spiritually, prophetically, its time has ended. The realm that once held you has no permission to claim you any longer. That is why people have been drifting away, why old desires have been losing their taste, why familiar places feel foreign. You have outgrown the frequency of where you were. Your spirit has been climbing, even while your mind tried to stay comfortable in the familiar. But the familiar cannot hold you anymore. Heaven has revoked its authority over your path, and the expiration of that chapter is final. You are not meant to return to what once defined you. You are not meant to shrink back into the version of yourself that the world tried to shape. There is a divine boldness rising inside you, quiet, steady, relentless. It is not aggression, it is awakening. It is the realization that you were never meant to be contained by the environments that misunderstood your light. Angels have been adjusting the flow of your life, shifting timelines, redirecting outcomes, and pushing you away from places where your spirit could not expand. And now, as the last fragments of your old season detach, you are stepping into the space where heaven has prepared a path that carries the resonance of your true identity. Someone reading this has been feeling an unusual heaviness, not of sadness, but of anticipation. It sits in the chest like something waiting to break open. This is the pressure of transformation. It is what happens when heaven is compressing years of divine momentum into a single defining threshold. Another person has felt unusually emotional, as if waves of clarity and confusion have been taking turns washing over them. This is not instability. It is alignment. Your emotional landscape is being reorganized so that when the final door seals, your heart will be free of the weights that once kept you circling the same patterns. Heaven is not just shifting your path. Heaven is healing your internal landscape so that you can walk into the next season without the residue of the last. There is a man whose story mirrors your own. He lived for years trapped in a cycle of spiritual exhaustion. Doors half opened, opportunities that slipped through his fingers, relationships that started with promise but ended without explanation. He believed he was cursed until the night something strange happened. He awoke to a vibration in his room, not a sound, but a frequency humming against the walls. He felt heat rise through his spine, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. It was as if something was standing beside his bed, watching over him, sealing something shut. The next morning, he felt lighter, empty in a good way, as if the weight he carried for years had evaporated. Days later, everything changed. New connections appeared. Closed opportunities reopened. Directions that once led nowhere suddenly carried clarity. He later realized that heaven had closed the old door in one night, and once it sealed, his entire life aligned. You may feel like you are waiting for a sign, but the truth is that heaven has already begun the transition. The shifts in your emotions, the tension in your spirit, the subtle changes in your environment, the sudden clarity about what no longer resonates. These are confirmations that the old chapter is finished. You are not being asked to fight anymore. You are being asked to recognize what heaven is already doing. When heaven closes a door, you don't need to understand it. You only need to surrender to the direction in which the wind of destiny is now blowing. Every delay you faced was intentional. Every rejection was protection. Every loss was divine subtraction. Heaven has been making room, clearing space, creating an opening for something that carries the weight of your true purpose. The new season being prepared for you cannot coexist with the ashes of the old. That is why your spirit has been restless. Not because you are unsure, but because you are being stretched toward something larger than you imagined. You are being prepared to walk into assignments that require the sharpened version of you that has emerged from every trial you endured. None of it was wasted. Every moment of pain contributed to the architecture of your calling. You are closer than you think. The breakthrough you have been sensing is not a dream. It is proximity. The acceleration you feel is not imagination. It is alignment. Your life is about to shift with a force you cannot yet comprehend. When the final seal closes, the clarity you have been begging heaven for will descend like a flood. You will understand why certain things had to end, why certain people had to leave, why certain paths collapsed right when you thought they were secure. Heaven was not dismantling your life. Heaven was removing anything incapable of supporting the destiny that is now unfolding. And as you stand before the threshold, breathe deeply. Feel the new atmosphere forming around your existence. Feel the weight lifting from your spirit. Feel the old releasing you. Nothing about your future will resemble what you walked through. You are stepping into a timeline written with intention, wrapped in divine protection, and infused with purpose that cannot be undone. This is not the end. This is the beginning disguised as closure. The door behind you is sealing, and the moment it does, everything ahead of you will open.